I want to talk about a very difficult subject today, and that is domestic violence. I'm going to talk about abuse and violence, and if this is triggering for you and you do not really want to watch this, then I suggest you click away because it will be triggering. So, why did I decide to do this video? It's been in the making. It's been in the back of my mind, but I've put it off. But what spurred it was I was doing my income tax, and I got to the point to where I needed some information, and I had to get out my divorce papers and some other legal documents. And I knew that it was going to be emotionally triggering for me, and it was. And I did that yesterday, and I thought it is time for me to do this video. So I got this description of what is domestic violence off of the National Domestic Violence website. Domestic violence is a pattern of abusive behavior in any relationship that is used by one partner to gain or maintain power and control over another intimate partner. Domestic violence can be physical, sexual, emotional, economic, psychological, or technological actions or threats of actions or other patterns of coercive behavior that influence another person within an intimate partnership. This includes any behaviors that intimidate, manipulate, humiliate, isolate, frighten, terrorize, coerce, threaten, blame, hurt, injure, or wound someone. That's quite the list. My first marriage was an abusive marriage. I didn't realize at the time a lot about the abuse. It started slowly over time. And it kind of started when we got married. And he would tell me what to wear and what not to wear, which wasn't a problem before. And then he had these gender expectations. And, that he was the man and I was the wife and I was to obey him. And I said that in those vows. I said, obey. Second time I got married, I didn't say that. And I know that hindsight, so often we can see. But the thing I really want to zero in on is the violence that I did not see as violent. And he would get mad. He would throw stuff at me. He would yell. He would bow up and get in my face, and he called me names, he criticized, he did all of those things, and I just thought there was something wrong with me. And then I don't really know how old this article is. It's by Abigail Van Buren, who did Dear Abby, and said abusive behavior can predict potential for violence. And here are some of the things she listed. Push for quick involvement, controlling, unrealistic expectations, jealousy. My first husband was jealous and controlling. And he didn't have to isolate me because when we got together, I was already kind of isolated. Makes everyone responsible for their feelings. It was my fault he was mad. It was my fault he wasn't happy. It was always my fault. Cruelty to animals and to children. I won't necessarily say that was a precursor, but he would treat waitstaff bad. We would be in the restaurant and he would get mad at them. And then if they didn't do exactly what he thought, then they wouldn't get a tip. And people that were kind of beneath him. Playful use of force during sex, verbal abuse, rigid sex roles, like the expectation of the man does this, the woman does that, and all of this sort of sudden mood swings, past battering. Now, I don't know of any of that, but I do know that he would get in fights all the time. He would go to the bar and get drunk and get in a fight, and then he would threaten violence. Most domestic violence homicides happen, 75% of them are when the victim tries to leave or after the relationship has ended. I certainly experienced this. The threats, he threatened to kill me. Never did with anyone in earshot, so I couldn't get a protective order. But our divorce was really messy and really, I was afraid. He stalked me. There were several things that happened, but what I want to really talk about is my thinking. When I finally got to my bottom and I decided to seek help, I went to a women's place to see a counselor where they dealt with abuse, domestic violence abuse, sexual abuse, that sort of thing. And I saw this counselor, and I told her about him ripping the screen doors off the house, him throwing stuff and making holes in the walls. And then I would take a picture and cover that up. I covered up everything. Everything looked okay on the outside, but on the inside of my house, there was violence. I didn't consider that violent. I remember one time he got really mad, and he was out in the garage, and he took a motorcycle helmet and threw it at the wall of the garage and made these big holes in the garage. And that counselor looked at me and said, "Do you not think that's violent?" And I said, "Well, yeah, maybe a little." She said, "You're living in domestic violence." And I said, "He doesn't hit me." And she said, "That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying he is violent. And he may not hit you, but he's the type of man that could kill you." Now, that's the first time I ever heard that. It's the first time I ever knew anything about that. And I heard what she said. And I went back to see her, and we worked out an escape plan to keep me safe. And I did these things. And he came home one day, and he was drunk. I didn't really know he was drunk. It was at noon. And I was doing laundry, and we got into this argument, and he came at me, and he started choking me. And I don't know what would really have happened if my son hadn't been home that day, pulled his dad off of me. I called 911, the police came. He was arrested that day because he assaulted the police officer, and which started our journey in recovery. I'd already been going to counseling. He ended up in treatment for alcoholism. I went to a 12-step program called Al-Anon, and I continued the counseling. And we went back together. A domestic violence victim, it takes about 7 times before they will actually leave the abuser. Now, I don't know how many times I had threatened. I don't know how many times I had thought I was leaving, and he would talk me out of it, and I would not leave. And when I finally did, he tried everything to get me to come back. And I just really did not realize the scope of the harm that I was in, because he kept threatening to kill me. We did get divorced, and the rest of my story is we were both in recovery. He got to the point to where he made amends, and I made amends. Because you see, about 6 months after our divorce was final, He found out he had cancer and he only lived 8 months. And before he died, we had really put stuff to rest between us. When I really realized the danger that I had been in was the domestic violence place here where I live put on a vigil, candlelight vigil for victims that had been murdered by their partner, domestic violent partner. And they asked me to speak. And so I went to go speak, and I walked in there and they had these silhouettes of these mostly women, and on them, on their chest, was their story and how their partner killed them. And I just was taken aback because I realized that could have been me. It could have been me. Every 3 seconds, let me get this right. No, every second, 3 people in the United States become a victim of domestic violence. If you think that someone you know is being abused and living in domestic violence, remember the 3 R's, and it is recognize, respond, and then refer them. If you think you're in a violent relationship, seek help. Go seek help. I will list information for the hotline. You can call or text, the website. Any information that you may need will be listed in the description below. I'll put the number across the screen. And just how important it is to choose you. Break the silence. It's a silent killer. 75% are killed trying to leave or after they have left. It's so important. And with COVID, these numbers rose. Domestic violence rose. So yeah, I've had a lot of emotion. I'm also very grateful that God protected me and that He got help and that we were at peace when He died. All this happened 30 years ago. 30 years ago. It still haunts me today. I work with a lot of women, and I share this experience with them. And that's how I continue to heal. I see you. Seek help. Email me. My email's in the description. Check out my website to see what I do. I work with women one-on-one, and do coaching. And of course, the most important thing is to be you on purpose.